Good evening on this Thursday, July 19th, and thank you again for stopping by at 28storms.com for another look at the tropics. Starting today with the regional satellite view, we see that there is a circulation that is very broad out across the central Atlantic, and this is associated with the tropical wave, but as we turn on the water vapor, we're still dealing with all of this dry air to the east of the Lesser Antilles, so we're not expecting any tropical development. You may also still notice the convection that is still persisting across the central and northern Gulf of Mexico, but this is still more related to an upper level low over the southeast, so this is not tropical in nature. Having said that, you always need to monitor any mesoscale convective complexes that move off the southeast coastline and into the Gulf of Mexico, because on rare occasions they can begin to spawn tropical cyclone development, and the prime example of this was Hurricane Danny, which struck southern Alabama exactly 15 years ago on this date. And Danny was not a very strong hurricane. It was only a Category 1, but it went down as being one of the most prolific rainmakers in United States history. In fact, the Dauphin Island area received an upwards of 37.75 inches of recorded rainfall, but this pales in comparison to some of the Doppler radar estimates, which were as high as 43 inches near Dauphin Island, and we can't confirm if those 43 inches actually fell or not, but if so, this would easily be the most prolific tropical cyclone rainfall event that we've had recorded so far in U.S. history. Luckily, not too many lives were lost in Danny, mainly because those high rainfall totals occurred so close to the coastline, so that mitigated the flooding, because otherwise if you get 43 inches in somewhere that is more interior, then you're going to run into serious problems. Thankfully, we don't have any of those concerns today, and I just wanted to show the latest wind shear map showing that yes, the upper level winds, as noted before, they are a little bit more favorable now out across the main development region, but until we get all of that subsidence and dry air to move out of the picture, it's really not going to matter because you can't get any organized convective activity. Over into the eastern Pacific, things have settled down with no active tropical cyclones, and to the south of Mexico, we're still going to be monitoring the monsoon trough for any signs of development, especially in the extended range, but as of right now, there are no signs of tropical activity. Before going into the latest forecast model guidance, I also want to mention that there is the risk of isolated severe storms out across some of the hurricane zones, so some of our listeners may be impacted by some of these storms over the next 1 to 2 days, especially out here over the next few hours across the Tennessee Valley. We've got some severe thunderstorm warned cells moving toward the southeast, so you may want to prepare for that if you're out ahead of those storms. And they're all firing out ahead of this cold front, which is pushing off toward the southeast. Of course, you still can get the occasional cold front to work this far toward the south, and we see the reason why on the water vapor. We've got the shortwave impulse moving out across the Great Lakes and extending all the way into the central plains, and that is helping to push our cold front more toward the south. Along with the front, the severe risk will continue to sag a little bit more toward the Gulf Coast states tomorrow, and you can see that the highest probabilities are centered across Mississippi and northern Alabama. And finally, this is the latest look at the ECMWF model guidance for the next 7 days, and we're looking at 850 millibar vorticity for any signs of surface convergence in the Atlantic Basin. And although we see a few weak tropical waves moving out of the coast of Africa, none of these look overly strong, and no signs of development are being seen in this model for the next 168 hours. Little development is going to occur as long as we've got all of this sinking motion at 200 millibars across the Atlantic Basin, and if the latest Madden-Julian oscillation forecast guidance is any indicator, then the next 1 to 2 weeks could remain somewhat quiet here across the Atlantic Basin. So we'll take this inactivity while we can, because although this is going to be a near average year and slower than some of the more recent seasons, that's not to say we won't get any threats during August and September. Also, one last thing before we close out this evening's video, I would like to mention that we have slightly altered the blog format on the front page of 28storms.com. Now all of the most recent blog updates are located within these little numbers here, and you can click through them. So this could just be an easier way for you to go ahead and access those most recent blogs. And this could also enable us to do a little bit more blog updating. So this is something that you can look forward to over the next few weeks once we get some of the kinks worked out. So that's all for now, and thanks again for watching. Spread the word about 28storms.com and the Hurricane Tracker app.